Thanks to Roger. I am the next speaker on the agenda, which makes my introduction of myself a little bit awkward, so I think I'll just begin. As I said before, my name is Matt Jablonski. I'm a sophomore American history teacher at Elyria High School. I can't rival Roger in experience. This is only my 16th year, but this puts me in sort of an interesting spot historically as far as standardized tests are concerned. No Child Left Behind was passed in 2001, which was 2 years after I started at Elyria High. And so I have experienced our full adaptation to this modern system of standardized testing, and in that way experienced what I think has become a culture of testing here in Elyria as it has in schools across the state and across the nation. Coming in as an educator, I believe that, that children learn by making sense of their world, that they come to a classroom with all different experiences and different ideas and different schema, and they encounter new material, just like you are today, about testing, and you're fitting all of these things into what it is that you know about testing. And if you can address or assign some meaning to these things that we're talking about, then you're more likely going to remember them. So that if my students in my classroom can assign meaning and think about how it is that they're thinking about things, then they can remember those and they can legitimately learn them. This is authentic teaching, I believe. The issue comes in when we primarily standardize, when we ask that students are learning something in a certain way, and the certain way is, of course, how that item or piece of content might be referenced on a particular test, on an assessment at a given grade level. Don't get me wrong, I don't have any problems with assessments. As a teacher, I give a lot of assessments. We're perpetually assessing at any given moment, looking at the response of a student. I like to open class each day with a review. I rattle through the questions of things that we've covered already. And I was doing this last week with World War II, and we were leading into the test, and there was a student in the front row who I heard whisper mostly to himself, "Holy crap, I'm learning these." And I thought, well, yes, excellent. And I suppose if it were only that simple, that if I could have every student use mildly inappropriate language to illustrate their knowledge, then we could figure this out. But I understand that it's not that simple and that you need other things. But I also believe that there is good assessment, that assessment should happen often, that they should be varied. They should provide students with multiple opportunities to show what it is that they know. And furthermore, there should be feedback, and that feedback should be immediate. Because if the students don't know what it is that they're doing wrong, soon after they have taken that assessment, then there's absolutely no way that they can move forward and learn those things. So when we picked up in 2001 in Elyria, obviously the state of Ohio adopted its curriculum to adhere to No Child Left Behind. We adopted the state's curriculum. Because I was teaching at the sophomore level, we found out that that was the grade at which the tests were going to occur. This means that I've spent approximately 10 years teaching students in a very high-stakes situation. Their graduation was dependent upon what happened in my class and their success on that test. And so teaching in an urban district where we have students who might tend to struggle at times, we got into it right away. The first OGTs were given in 2005. 3 years prior to that, we were meeting as grade level teachers. We had at the time about, I suppose, 8 different teachers who taught U.S. history. We all gathered and we started creating common assessments. We went to the standards, as Roger said, and we wrote questions that we believed evoked high-level thinking, and we measured each standard, and we still do this today. If you have a student at the high school in Elyria and you want to know how they're doing on a particular standard on World War II, for example, you can ask me, and I can tell you how well they did by percentage for this particular standard. That's something that you'll never see from a standardized test. We moved forward with those and started administering in the year prior to the first OGTs, and then the tests came out, and we were predictably fairly low in scoring in that first year. And so we knew we needed to adapt. We didn't know what the tests would look like, and so we adapted. The state at the time was releasing questions, so we would use released questions within our assessments for review to start class. We also focused on the essays because we found that the essays were going to carry a great deal of weight I went to a conference at that time, 05, 06, that was given by the company that graded the OGT essays, and they explained to us exactly what they needed from students. They indicated that students could simply list answers as phrases, and those would qualify for the short answers. That they really only needed 3 or 4 sentences for the extended response. And so I came back and reported to my department, and we started teaching students how to write 2-point essays and how to write 4-point extended responses, specifically as the company that was grading the tests wanted them to be graded. Now, we're looking at education today, and we're wondering why, even at this point with all of this assessment, 10 years after No Child Left Behind, we're still having difficulties with students being college ready. I think that a part of that has to do with learning how to write 2-point essays. Nobody at a college level course is going to give you an essay of that nature. It doesn't make any sense at all. Now, this is nothing against what we did in the schools. We were trying to get our students to be successful. And ultimately we were. We continued to adapt, we continued to find new ways, we continued to collaborate, both on meaningful assignments, what we thought was authentic, and on those things that we believed would help with the tests. And gradually we got better, and we got better, and sort of felt good about things. And still it became problematic, because you would reach a point where, you know, okay, in a regular class you might hit 75% of your students that were passing, or in the honors classes that I teach, you know, it was at 98 or 100% of students that were passing. Then the directive was that we need more at the accelerated level. We need more at the advanced level. How can you do this? And so we implement more test prep so that we can crank up those numbers, because the state's measuring all of that, and that reflects on our school. And that rating on the school is what the public is looking at, so they know that we're doing our job correctly. The high stakes has been around for quite some time, and we've been feeling it. The worst part of it is with any given kid. Any teacher who has faced a student who scored a 398 when they need a 400 to pass that test, and has had to explain to them that this is the issue, whether they're a sophomore and they have to take it again, or they're a senior and they know they're not graduating, it's a problem. And the students know this, they know the stress. And the real issue here is that we've gone from this, and I didn't like that system. And now I find myself looking back and like the OGTs were the good old days and thinking, gee, I wish it was like this some more. That was problematic, and it's only becoming worse. My students are demoralized, I guess. I've seen increases in legitimately diagnosed anxiety orders, absences for the sake of anxiety, problems with testing. You know, the idea is that we go in and we just teach, but when you've got kids who need to graduate, it becomes very difficult when you're responsible for that number. And now we move. I'm going to give the OGT this year, and it's the last time, and I don't know that I'll cry that it's leaving, but what we move into is unbelievable. Once again, we in Elyria have started early. We were looking at this stuff 4 years ago, because the transition to these new tests was actually supposed to happen a lot sooner, and it was put off, and it was put off, and so we looked once again at the common assessments, end-of-year exams. We adapted curriculum. We started talking about how we're going to do this, infusing historic documents, using the AB source questions, things of this nature that appear on these new tests. So we've been working. But the issue is the sheer magnitude of testing and what we're losing here beginning next week. The window opens the day after President's Day. We begin testing in our schools and in schools across Ohio the day after President's Day, and we'll finish in mid-May. Over that stretch of time, there are 5 days in the city of Elyria, 5 days at the high school anyway, where there aren't tests going on. No state tests, 5 days from mid-February to mid-May. It's unbelievable. Currently, in the OGT, we give 5 tests. We did 1 week delayed schedule. Each test was a couple hours, right? 2.5, something like this. So in total, a high school student would take 12.5 hours of testing. And you'll forgive me, I'm going to read these things. Under the current system, there are 7 tests. They're divided into 24 separate parts, or testing sessions. This is at the high school level alone. This means that we're going from 12.5 hours to more than 31 hours of testing, once again from mid-February through mid-May. The tests themselves require a higher degree of technological ability, and at times are so convoluted that the degree to which they require the manipulation of the electronics is unbelievable, and I believe we're going to see some of this stuff at the other grade levels later. Looking at the tests where they've been rolled out in other states, New York has rolled out comparable testing. They're currently, and they're 2 years in, they're looking at 30% passing rates at any given grade level. 30% of students. We're walking in with the knowledge that we're going to give these tests, and 70% of kids aren't going to pass. For minorities, which should be of concern around here, the passing rates are at 16 to 17%. At Elyria High School, we have 2,100 students. Tests are administered to freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. For the first week, next week, they're giving the English language arts. All freshman teachers are going to lose their students for the first 2 periods. I believe the same is happening the week after that. We have, over the next, I suppose, 3 months, we have no computer lab use. They're all going to be needed to administer standardized testing. Administrators, for the most part, are involved in testing. We have been told that we have no access, and students will have little access to guidance counselors because they are now test administrators. I've spoken to people in the IT department. They have told us that if we have issues in the classroom, they will get to it when they can because they're re-upping computers for testing. Most days we have 4 testing sessions per day. Students are running in 2-hour sessions. I think there's a 15-minute break, then another 2-hour, 15-minute break, another 2-hour. And we're barely fitting them all in. If students are absent, if there are makeups, if there are technological difficulties, I really have no idea what we're going to do. I'm not sure exactly where to go. I know that going into school tomorrow, I'm teaching for the OGT. I know that my students will be successful because I know what I'm doing, because this is what we've been doing. I'm trying to teach and find that balance, to teach in a meaningful way, but in a way that enables them to pass this test. Going forward, I'm going to continue to contact my legislators. I'm going to continue to voice my opinion to people. And I would hope that you would ask your children, and that you would ask their teachers, and that you would talk this up to your friends, and contact people as well. Thank you.